we jump to, so I'm going to jump ahead. I got like 3 pages of note that I'm skipping over, and we'll get that information out at some point. But I want to jump to Michelle Griggs' testimony. So the first person who was called after the opening statements. Now I'm thinking after the opening statements, I'm like, oh, okay, we're about to go home, because I want to say it was 4 p.m. It was 4 p.m. because the person next to me was like, well, how long is this going? And I said, well, I think the court closes at 4. Well, she was like, it's 4 p.m. And I said, well, I guess we're going to 6 because the building closes at 6. So they called Michelle Griggs. She was asked by the government how many children she has. She has 6 children. They then asked about Andre, and the attorney put up on the screen in front of Miss Griggs a photo of Andre, basically asking her, is that her son, Andre? We couldn't see the photo. It was only for the screen right directly in front of her at the witness stand. Then she also asked her, did she know who Tim Norman was? She asked her to identify, like you see on TV where it's like, well, could you point them out? What do they have on? She did that whole thing. And so she asked her, Andre's weight, his height, which was 5'10", his weight 220. When was he born? October 15th, 1993. And where? In San Diego, California. And then she asked her about how does she know Tim? And she talked about, Tim being the half brother of Andre's father, who was her baby daddy, basically. Talked about how Andre ended up in St. Louis the first time when he was younger. So they did talk about how he was kind of having issues in Texas, and how his mom basically had been talking to Miss Robbie about it, and they all agreed that he should come to St. Louis and finish out high school. And she said that everyone was on board. Miss Robbie was on board, Tim was on board, and Andre was on board for it. So I don't think I wrote the year, but I think it was 2012 or so, 2011, 2012. He came to St. Louis to finish out high school, and he came during Thanksgiving, and he just stayed. And during that time, he worked as a busboy at the Sweetie Pie's location. So we know that after that, now this is the part, he was on the show. We all saw that. That's how we got to know and love Andre and get all the laughs and feel like he was an extension of our own family, etc. And so after that, we know that he ended up not being on the show after that. And they started talking about, Andre kind of being pulled towards the streets and things that occurred that ended up having him end up back in Texas. And when he was in Texas, things weren't going any better. And so through conversation with Miss Robbie, she's telling Miss Robbie, like, he's lost. He doesn't know what he's doing here, and he's not doing anything. And so the next thing, Tim then calls her and then offers to be this mentor. What her exact words was, Tim called and basically said, can you send Andre here? Let me take care of him and teach him how to be a man. I guess he meant a man not on this side of earth, I guess. But anyway, Michelle, of course, agreed because she wanted the best for her son. So Andre then comes here, and this is where I had just spoke of earlier. Tim ended up getting Andre an apartment in his luxury apartment building down the hall from him. They were in the same building. He gave Andre access to his cars, gave him allowance, gave him a job, et cetera, and got him in Nelly's music school. Now, Michelle was asked that when Tim asked for Andre to come back to St. Louis as more of an adult now, did he ask you for anything regarding Andre, like any documentation, et cetera? And she said, yes. This was interesting because now we know the whole story. She said he asked for his birth certificate, social security number, and it was another thing, a document she said, and for some reason I didn't write it down. Makes a lot of sense now. Like, these are things, that information that he needed for the life insurance policy. So this is just snaky. That's snaky. Ooh. So he asked for Andre to come here, plotting on his mom who just wanted the best for her son. And he's like, let me get this dude here so I can do this. What he ended up doing. Now, it took years, but this is what he ended up doing. Yeah, then I went into the whole, after he passed away. Oh, so that was the reason I wrote this down again. So imagine him being the reason why Michelle Griggs encourages Andre to come back to St. Louis so that he can teach him how to be a man. And then he gets here. He eventually gets, his life taken. And then the person who asked you to give them your child so that they could elevate them, so to speak, or take care of them is the person who never calls you when that child passes away, when they failed, because he failed. He never reached out to her, treated it like, well, I never asked him to come here. And then the only time he says anything to her, now you can call me and ask me for my child, and you can call me and ask me for very important documents, but you can't give your condolences until you see me at the funeral. And then that's just a couple words and you walk away. Evil. So, this was another part. So this was heartbreaking because the prosecution had showed Miss Griggs Andre's photo, basically like, is this your child? Then she came back and she showed her another exhibit, which was Andre again. However, this particular photo, and it's stuck in my head now, but this particular photo was actually Andre's photo of him in the morgue. Okay, so I'm gonna move on from that because that almost got me. But yeah. But yeah, so, and of course, when she showed her that photo, it caused her to break down. But she powered through, and then she went on to then answer the cross-examination from Tim's attorney, who then just tried to paint out Andre like a wayward child, like you didn't know where he lived, did he talk to you, all those sort of things. Oh, the other thing too I have here about Michelle and her testimony, she was asked, when did she find out that Tim, because remember now, Tim has asked for these documents that align with someone trying to get this information for an insurance policy, life insurance policy. She was asked, when did she find out that had Tim ever mentioned this life insurance policy to her, which the answer was no, of course. Then she was asked, well, when did she find out? She didn't find out about this $450,000 life insurance policy until after Andre passed away. And she found out from the feds. Tim never mentioned it. Nobody else ever mentioned it. This is how she found out. She was also asked if she knew of or knew Wael Yagnam. Of course, the answer was no. She knew nothing about what was happening there. Hope Charles writes a tell-all book. Ooh. Oh, y'all, it's so much. I can't get through all. I'm tired, y'all. Okay, so I'm going to give y'all this, and then I'm going to read these questions, and then I got to go for the night, y'all, because I want to be able to come back tomorrow, and I'll be too tired if I don't get some rest, and I need to eat. But, okay, so Charles was brought up. And there was evidence. So the other thing, for those of you who are following me and Philly Phil and all the other great commentators on this who are showing y'all like these court documents, etc., and the evidence, well, today we saw more stuff. So they did not put out everything. I know y'all looking at the stuff we've been going over like, ooh, this is a lot. That ain't even everything. So today, what I saw that I had never seen before, they put into evidence a text message exchange between Charles Crenshaw, aka Charles's cousin, Andre's cousin and bestie. It was Charles had texted, and I was nervous. Ooh, I was nervous when they, because at that point they had only been talking about Tim's text messages with the people we were already familiar with, the Terica. Well, they brought up Travell, and we hadn't seen the text message exchange, but there was a text message exchange they brought up with him. But Wael, Terica, what was it? Big somebody. I'm forgetting his name because he's a newer player. But Carol and all those. So then they bring up Charles, and I'm like, oh my God, Charles was involved. Charles knew something. So what they brought up was Charles had sent Tim a text message. Can't remember the timeline, but like sometime months or a year or whatever it was before it was in January. So Andre was taken March 16th, if I'm not mistaken, of 2016. Charles had texted Tim January something of 2016. So Charles, it was interesting. It was kind of chuckled in my head a little bit because it was like classic Charles, what we know to be, we've seen on the show for years. Charles texts Tim saying, hey, can you help me out? Because can you help me out with $1,300 because my car is in the pound? And so Tim responds, what happened? Blah, blah, blah. And so Charles says that his car was in the pound because he had tickets on it and he ended up getting a ticket while it was parked somewhere and they towed it. And now it's impounded. And he said he needed the money because every day it was accumulating. We know how pounds work. It was accumulating more money and he didn't have the money that it originally took to get it in there. And so Tim's response, and this is how it plays into this court case, because one of Tim's attorney's opening statements or points in his opening statement was how rich Tim was and how he never would need to get insurance money from anyone because he was very wealthy. And he said that, Tim had luxury places that he lived at and cars and jewelry, and everyone who saw him said he always had a lot of cash on him. And this is what his attorney said. So the government pulls this piece of evidence out, and this was during the FBI's agent's testimony. And I'm skipping ahead just because this statement came out, this comment. They ended up showing Tim's response to Charles asking for $1,300 was, man, I owe what he's like $5,000 at this location and $9,000 at this location and $20,000 at this location, talking about his monthly bills at all the various restaurants that were open in 2016. As we know now, it's only the two that are barely open, as we're talking about in these comments. But back then it was, he had the NoHo and West Florissant, and I think Mangrove might have even still been open, and Upper Crust and all that. So he had multiple restaurants. So he's telling Charles about all these bills, and he says, and how much you think that is? And so Charles then, he obviously added it up, and he responds with, that's $90-something thousand. And he was like, yeah, so I don't have it. He was like, Tim said, he said, I've had to sell my bike. He said, I've had to sell my jewelry, and I'm about to get put out of my apartment. I'm gonna have to move out of my apartment because I'm getting put out. This was January. Andre was taken in March. Does that sound like a response from a rich person? So that was very interesting. I'm telling y'all, I believe there is so much more to come. I could tell just from the tidbits. But anyway, let me get back to the comments, and then I'm gonna have to check out for the night, y'all. But there you go. Thank you. That's a great place to end this. Nourish, Tracy Harrell, Nourish and Rest. We'll be here again with you tomorrow. I appreciate all of you for joining me. However many of you, because I didn't pull it up on my other device, but however many of you that are here, I really appreciate you for supporting me. Please remember to hit that like button, share this video. It does more than you ever will know. So with that, until next time, until I upload the next video or go live again, I should say. But with that, until next time, you guys take care, be blessed. Thank you, and peace.
Hey, poppin' like I'm supposed to. Watch out for the people that ain't close to. Speak a little something you could toast to. I ain't tryna hear about what you won't do. Moving like I'm into. Hit the ground running like the rent do. Speak a little something that you're into. I ain't tryna hear about what you been through. Like hold up, say what's the hold up. I got the pack, who got the roll up? I'm tryna pull up. It seem like every time I show up, it gotta go up. See the drip, they see the glow up. Oh, now they know us. See, it's funny how my pockets out of shape, but I'm fit for the a flex. Clear the phone call, hit my chick with a text. Parlay through the bird with my drip from the jets. Save a couple hundred by your with the rest.